If there's one thing we love in video games, it's spookums. No, hang on, I totally forgot who we were for a moment there. Let me start again. If there's one thing enormous babies like us cannot handle in video games, it's spookums.
I don't like it, and I can only see the preview window.
Actual horror games push us to our very limits, but at least they are clearly labelled as horror, meaning we can either avoid them or schedule the next few days off work so we can huddle under the duvet and cry. Unfortunately though, there are many non-horror games with one or two enemies that would be right at home in the worlds of, say, Outlast or Resident Evil. Today we both celebrate them and warn you of them. The bigger the disparity between the scary enemy and the family friendliness of the game, the higher the position it will get on this list. For example, if Lisa from PT were to appear in Animal Crossing, we would definitely have a new number one. Before we begin though, honourable mentions have to go out to some of the more predictable ones that we just chose to avoid for originality's sake. There's the smorgasbord of unsettling foes from the Zelda series, the T-Rex from Tomb Raider, weird fetus Gygus from Earthbound, and the creepy Watson from Sherlock Holmes' Nemesis. Not that he's an actual enemy, I just wanted to bring up how much I hate him. Oh my god, he's like Slenderman. Let's just go. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are the 10 scariest enemies from non-horror games. Number 10, all the debatable ones. Yes, the honourable mentions effectively bleed into point number 10, as it's a bit of a wildcard entry, oh spooky! The issue with these is what counts as a creepy enemy and what counts as a horror game. The ghouls from the Fallout series, the Boy of Silence from BioShock Infinite, werewolves from the Order 1886, the Leviathan from Subnautica, the Wretch from Dark Souls 3, Half-Life's Fast Zombies. All of these could comfortably make this list under certain definitions, but the question is whether they actually count. These aren't usually considered horror games, but maybe they should be. This question really just leads to more questions. Is the primary purpose of any of those games to scare, or are the scares secondary? Who is the target audience? Does the scary enemy itself make the game a horror game by default? What does the rest of Diglett look like? There are so many things we need to know to truly nail down this dilemma. The Diglett thing is unrelated though, I just want to know. Gone Home has an eerie atmosphere, but most of the fear comes from what you're projecting onto it. There's also something unnerving about your Kerbals getting trapped in orbit for the rest of their lives in Kerbal Space Program, but that's just a game about building rockets, isn't it? Does Luigi's Mansion count as maybe a horror game for kids? It's not always clear. So rather than ignoring these formidable foes because of petty things like accurate definitions, we thought, why not just group them all together at the bottom? Everybody happy? No? Yeah, I kind of thought not. Number 9, Vas Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 is first and foremost your standard Ubisoft open-world first-person shooter, or an Ubi world as it will now be known. All Ubi worlds are fundamentally the same thing. Climb the tower to reveal locations, collect all the unnecessary filler, then shoot and or stab and or explode things ad nauseum. But one thing Far Cry 3 has that many other Ubi worlds lack is a truly effective villain. Far Cry 4 tried to recapture the magic with Pagan Min, but he seemed more like a caricature of a villain rather than an actual one, and was a far cry from his predecessor. Vas felt genuine. He was vicious, unpredictable, callous, and intimidating.
And it's not like I am crazy. It's okay.
So why on earth, spoiler alert by the way, did they kill him off halfway through and replace him with a far less memorable baddie? Hoyt Volker turns out to be the actual main villain in Far Cry 3. Yeah, I forgot that happened too. It's not that he's terrible or anything, but there's a good reason why Vas was the face of Far Cry 3's marketing.
One time is funny, two times annoying, no?
Number 8, Nightfolk, Red Dead Redemption 2. It's all lovely horses and wild camping with your friends until horrifying voodoo zombie-like swamp folk attack you at night in the foggy bayou, trying to stab you as bodies hang from nearby trees. I just wanted to be a cowboy. Yeehaw. Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't have much you can really call horror until you encounter the Nightfolk. When you meet these swamp dwellers for the first time, you might think their antagonistic nature is because you've stepped onto their land, but as soon as you see mounds of corpses nearby and the deranged way they keep running at you, even as you thin their ranks with your trusty boomstick, the true horror sets in. Thankfully, the Nightfolk aren't really much of a threat. Apart from the fact they attack very quietly, the only danger comes from their rudimentary weapons. Still, your first encounter with the Nightfolk and their subsequent side mission will stick long in the memory for how truly unsettling and unexpected it is. Number 7. The Flood, Halo. Halo is a military shooter, but in space, so instead of shooting people because they're from a different country, you shoot aliens because they're from a different planet. Now, war may be horrific, but it's not exactly horror. Halo especially can be quite bright and colourful from time to time, with lots of hopping around in low gravity and doing mad stunts in your warthog. But then we get to the Flood. The Flood is both one enemy and a vast array of enemies. While the Flood does come in all shapes and sizes, they are part of a single hive mind. A terrifying entity by the name of the Grave Mind controls enough Flood parasites to dominate whole worlds, if not entire galaxies, all by infecting living creatures and converting them into one of their own. Like zombies, but quicker, and they can use guns. The Flood are even so horrible that the series' namesake was created purely to end them. The Halo ring's purpose is to destroy all sentient life in a galaxy, therefore starving the Flood of hosts and eradicating them. It says a lot, really, that while the Halo ring may end millions of innocent lives, the Flood continuing to exist is deemed even worse than that. The bone-chilling tension of their found footage-style introduction in Halo Combat Evolved probably tells you everything you need to know, although arguably Beyoncé said it best. Everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I can see your halo. You know you're my saving grace. Number 6. The Dark Bramble Anglerfish, Outer Wilds. I'll say now that this is a bit of a spoiler, not entirely for plot reasons, but because Outer Wilds is best enjoyed with no idea of what's to come. I spoke earlier about the unnerving feeling you get from Kerbal Space Program when one of your pilots floats off endlessly into oblivion. Outer Wilds has that too, to an extent, but rather than a feeling of dread, Outer Wilds provides more a feeling of wonder, of awe at the sheer power of the universe. Plus, the 10-minute time loops don't even give you enough time to get properly stuck, let alone worry about the consequences. While exploring the worlds of Outer Wilds, though, you'll eventually happen upon the menacing-looking Dark Bramble, but its ominous exterior holds an even darker, more perilous secret within. A creature capable of destroying you with nary a thought. The most threatening of all creatures. Oh, it's just a light, actually. It's quite pretty, really. Let's just get a little bit closer and, okay, no, I'm done. Thanks very much, I'll see you later. Number 5, The Descendants, Uncharted Drake's Fortune. The Descendants is a tragic and heartfelt family drama set against a backdrop of the sights and sounds of modern Hawaii. No, sorry, that's the 2011 film starring George Clooney. What we're talking about are the enemies in the original Uncharted. If you've played the game, you already know what we're talking about, even if you didn't know their official in-universe name. For a game that was pretty much Tomb Raider, but the protagonist has a smug grin and a Wilson now, Uncharted Drake's Fortune is a PlayStation classic. You spend much of the game exploring scenic landscapes while on the search for lost treasure. So far, so Lara. The main enemies are your run-of-the-mill mercenaries who are easily dispatched by a couple of pistol rounds and a well-delivered quip. But then you get to the bunker. the Nazi bunker. Yeah, that's right, the Nazi bunker in Uncharted Drake's Fortune may be among the biggest tonal shifts in gaming history. In a very short space of time, you make the fairly acceptable jump from Tomb Raider to Indiana Jones, but then an even larger leap to, well, this. You think at first this is just a bit of a creepy area with some Nazi stuff lying around, but before you even have time to equip your whip and Stetson, the whole thing devolves into Call of Duty Zombies mode.
Oh, yeah.
All this from the same studio that brought us Crash Bandicoot. Oh, don't tell me, Neo Cortex was Joseph Goebbels all along, huh? Number 4, GLaDOS Portal. The Genetic Lifeform and Disk Operating System, or GLaDOS if you want to get acronym about this, is the main antagonist of the Portal series. With the dry monotone reminiscent of HAL 9000 and a personality that tiptoes the line between manufactured humour and cold cruelty,
you are a horrible person. That's what it says.
GLaDOS has a way of keeping you on edge for the entirety of the first game, and even most of the second one, despite the fact that you work together on some of that. There's a reason the scribblings of the Ratman can be found all over the Aperture Science laboratories, warning you of the dangers of GLaDOS. And no, I will not say the line about the thing that rhymes with fake. GLaDOS has done far worse things than be dishonest about confectionery. Let's not forget that everyone in the Aperture Science Enrichment Center is dead because GLaDOS killed them with neurotoxin. If you stop to consider it, GLaDOS being on this list means that 50% of Portal 1's enemies are certified scary, although admittedly there are only 2 types of enemies in Portal, and the turrets are too adorable to stay mad at for long. I suppose you could argue that GLaDOS loses a bit of her menace in the post-ending musical number, but to that I say,
no.
Rogue Warrior had one of those, but Dick Marcinko remains the scariest human man ever to exist. Number 3, The Eel, Super Mario 64. For this entry, we have very much straddled the line on predictability. I would have quite liked to see the giant moray eel from the PS1 game Treasures of the Deep here if we're doing sea monsters, but on the other hand, I expect a lot of you thought that if there was a Super Mario 64 entry in this list, it would be the horrible piano jump scare. We're compromising though, and heading over to Jolly Roger Bay. Now it may partly be that this is early 3D and doesn't compare to the crisper character models we are now used to, a bit like how shows from the 70s and 80s all look inexplicably terrifying today, but the eel in particular from Super Mario 64 was always uncannily horrible. On the other hand though, thalassophobia is a very real thing. Fear of the vast expanse of the ocean and what may be hiding in its depths. In fact, this won't be the last time we see a creepy underwater monster in this list. To be honest though, I think it's a combination of the two that's the real creep factor here. The eel actually makes a return appearance in Mario Odyssey, and of course has a much more detailed model this time, which we think actually makes it slightly less scary. Why modern day horror developers aren't making games with N64 or PS1 graphics, I do not know. This stuff is even more terrifying today than it was back then. Number 2, Creepers, Minecraft. Imagine the scene. You're in Minecraft, merrily spending your time hacking at stone with your trusty pickaxe somewhere deep in a mine by your house. The torches are lit, the surroundings are familiar, and the soothing piano score is playing in the background. You see a bit of iron ore that you'd simply walked by before. Silly you. You dig your way through it and fall into a previously undiscovered cave system. It's pitch black though, apart from the thin sliver of light from where you fell in. You desperately look for your torches in your inventory, but before you even have time to realise that you're not alone, you hear a sound from behind you. You have been creepered. Oh, and look, so has the cave wall. Just in the background of your death screen, you see lava seeping in from a newly formed crevice, coming to take your full set of diamond armor and tools that you dropped on the floor. Haha. I need therapy. Minecraft is a supposedly pleasant game about building, but it also features the moans of zombies, the squeals of spiders, everything about the Endermen, and even a version of hell by the name of the Nether. And that's not even considering the plight of Steve when playing in single-player mode. A lone man trapped for eternity in a literally infinite world with only villagers for company. Oh, and the creepers as well. I forgot about those for a second. Oh, love those guys. And number 1, the Vortex Queen, Ecco the Dolphin. There's surely nothing horrible in Ecco the Dolphin, right? Well, some of you might not have actually seen what the later levels of the game look like due to its infamous difficulty. For those who played this when they were younger, you might think that Ecco was just a short dolphin simulator where you swim around in the ocean for a while and then turn the thing off because you can't get any further. Well, have I got a horrible surprise for you. After spending most of your time talking to fellow dolphins and doing a few fancy jumps out of the water, you'll do a really big one, and all of your friends will get beamed up into space by a tornado. You continue to make your way through the levels, but find that each one is more claustrophobic and ominous than the last. Sometime later, the tornado will come for you, and you'll end up in a Geiger-esque alien base. What? Battling your way through will get you to the abomination known as the Vortex Queen, and oh my, what a horror. It doesn't take much explaining as to why the Vortex Queen is so frightening. The disparity between the xenomorph-like monstrosity and the charming oceanic beginning of Ecco the Dolphin is exactly why we described Uncharted's Nazi bunker as one of the biggest tonal shifts in gaming. Couple her horrific design with the fact that, again, anything that's big and lives in deep water is inherently terrifying, and you can see exactly why the Vortex Queen undeniably deserves a spot in this list at number 1. And also why it's caused many children to do a number 1 in their bed sheets. Fortunately though, if you've made it this far without doing that yourself, you are now safe, because that is our list. But did we miss anything out? Let us know what other enemies from non-horror video games scared you, either as a child or a grown adult. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter here, and if you want to support the things you enjoy, then why not have a look at our Patreon. Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I've been Peter from TripleJump, and thanks for watching.